So I've just, sorry, the URL is not that easy to copy down, but you should have the 4-digit number. So if you replace the red part here with the number that you've been given, and then go to this web address, it should bring you up to a similar page to what Mark was showing in the example before.
Can you paste that into chat?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that helps, but it might do.
I got to find out how to get to chat. I've just got Q&A. Oh, there we go. Everybody. So the people, with the people in the room, Rick, have you been handing out the numbers in order, or have they been random?
I think I understood they were random, Lucky.
Okay. We'll have to wait to find which ones are left.
Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, they're all handed out in the room. Now I've got to work out exactly how to assign numbers in the what I might do for the people who are online. Send me a message, or send me a or type in I want to do the exercise in the chat, and I'll just respond to each person who's done that and give you a number, because I've got all the numbers that haven't been assigned here in front of me. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yep. Okay.
Hopefully next time I run this workshop, I'll have a way to hand it out automatically so that we don't have to do this.
Probably if I've done some forward planning, but I think I've reserved that for my next life.
It's okay. I only got the server working about 20 minutes before this, so.
You got a request, Rick. I don't know if you saw, from Greg Poole.
What's that? Yeah, I'm just sending him one now.
Oh, yeah.
Once everybody has a URL and a number, we can start. Do we still need the URL on my screen?
It's in the chat,
Yeah,
so
they
can copy it from there.
People are saying they just need it for a couple of seconds more, and I'm. Can you actually copy the URL and send it out as a chat?
Yeah, I have.
It's in there already, Rick.
Oh, okay. In that case, we don't need it on. Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah. Yep. Great. Actually, people still need it in the room because they're quite well. Actually, the people who don't have computers don't need it because they're not using computers. So.
That's why you're in charge and we're not, Rick.
Those flashes of insight.
So is everybody who's got a computer in the room on Zoom anyway?
Apparently not.
I don't know.
Does it run on any browser? Is it like Safari, or does it need?
Yeah, it should work on your phone if the screen's big enough.
Right. Okay.
If it doesn't work on your phone, then it's not my fault. But it should work on Macs and on computers.
On Macs and on computers.
What?
Macs and non-computers. That's
We
nice.
play both kinds.
Well, on Windows.
This is the first time I've actually run a workshop like this, so it's or been involved in a workshop live end.
Well, I think it's easier to do this type of workshop when you're in the room rather than doing it remotely, but
Oh no, it's working fine. Everybody's just flailing away.
should I go to the actual notebook now?
Yep, I'm okay. How are people going? Is everyone in their notebook? Have they got, yeah, go to the notebook and show people what it looks like, what they should be seeing on their screen.
So hopefully I didn't tell you to give out the one that I'm going to use, but if that's the case, that would be funny. So you should all have a, wait, actually you will have come to
We've got
this page, which is the directory, and it will have it should have a little book with a Mount Isa workshop.ipy notebook.
Yep.
Hopefully, if you haven't clicked it, that's blue, and that just means that it hasn't started yet. So once you're here, you can open up the notebook. So for those of you that haven't used the Jupyter notebooks before, they basically, it's like having a piece of code that you run, and then each cell is a separate file that gets run without restarting the code. So any variable you define, is there something in the chat? No, every variable that you define in a cell that has been run will be visible in other cells that are run later, but the ordering doesn't actually matter. So if I ran the cell at the start and then run the cell at the end, nothing in the middle would have happened yet. So just be aware that if you're having errors come out, it might be because you've run the cells in the wrong order. With the Jupyter notebooks, if you want to restart everything, so clear it, you can use this button here, which is the circle, and it says restart kernel. You can, if it's not working very well, you can press the stop, interrupt the kernel. And to run a cell, you can press the run button, or you can press shift and enter at the same time whilst in the cell. So what we can do to start with is the first few cells are just setting everything up and importing the required libraries for the workshop. So they're separated into the different things, whether it's for the map or whether it's for the loop part. So if you've used Python before, then you should be able to see which libraries that we're using. So we can run this cell by clicking run, and then run the following cell. And then we get to the setting up of the loop Map2Loop project. So this is where we link the data files to the project, so it knows where to look for the geology, the faults, the folds, the structures, etc. So on this example, we're using some shapefiles that we've stored on the computer that you're using. And then in the next bit of code, I've defined a few areas that you can choose that work reasonably well for the map. So if we run this cell and then run the following cell, and then you should have a header that says select an area of interest. So this has a bit of code here. If we run this one, we end up with the interactive map. It may take a little while for it to appear. We haven't tried having a lot of people access the server at once. So Mark, be ready to restart it. And please let me know if it's not working properly, because it's the first time I've run the notebooks in this way before. Last time I had it set up a little bit differently. So I'm hoping that it will all work smoothly for everybody.
So is it supposed to come up without the geological map? Because that's what came up as well.
The geological map should appear, but it's using a remote server that is a little bit flaky. So Mark might be able to tell us whether it's functional. You're muted, Mark.
No, the server's still up at the moment. It's just I noticed it's a bit slow because it's relying on the internet.
If it doesn't work, we can try running. Map2Loop doesn't require that server because we've got the files hosted locally, so we can run the next section. So if you run the next cell, and then there's this one should come up with a drop-down menu, and so there's 3 outcrops that I've defined: the dome structure, antiform, and then an outcrop in the east. It's just so you can work out. So they are drawn on the map, and you can see that and if the geology was there, whoops, then it would be easy to work out which one are meaning. But for reference, there's the dome here, the antiform, and then the east outcrop. So if you want to choose, so let's start with the dome structure, which was the one that Mark showed in the demonstration. So you don't need to do anything. You can just leave it as selected on the dome structure. In this cell, basically, it defines the bounding box of the model. So the area on the map, and then the base and top. So we've got these defined here. So we're making it 1200 above topography, and then 3,200 is below. So in the next section, we'll run Map2Loop so that we can run that cell, and this will come up with a progress bar. And it may take a little bit of time to run because it needs to go through and interpolate the contacts, the unit thicknesses, and the fault displacements. So it can take a little bit of time.
Mine didn't go. I ran it, but it didn't come up with a progress bar.
Did the star come up, or did it come up with an error?
No, I'll try it again.
No, it looks like it's just crashed the server.
Which server?
The loop server, I'd say to guess.
Well, it should work without the loop server though, this stuff.
Yeah, but in terms of showing things.
Yeah, I kind of expected that might happen.
Yeah.
Rick, if it didn't work, you could try restarting the kernel and then running the cells up until that point.
Well, if you can actually just run the double arrow and run the whole thing, and it should be fine.
So the double arrow restarts the kernel, so it clears everything and then runs all the cells from the top to the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to, I might just go around and see how everybody else is doing here.
Yeah.
Rather than just doing it myself.
No worries. So once this is finished, it will say 100% here, and there won't be a star in this part here, and it'll come up with a number. So this one's cell number 9. It was the 9th cell to be run, and then we can run the next cell, which is the loop structural part. So this is building the geological model or interpolating the surfaces.
Oh, Lachlan, sorry.
Yep.
Can I just interrupt? It sounds like a lot of people have the same error I have, which is in the first block cannot import surf.
Oh, that's okay. So yeah, that error, that's a warning. Surfy is a different interpolation library, but it's a bit difficult to install. So by default, it doesn't get installed, but everything should work without that. Unfortunately, the Jupyter notebooks print out the errors and all the warnings as the same color, so it's hard to work out which one's which.
Actually, I'm walking around right now, and it feels like there's only really a couple of us that can't get it to work.
Okay.
It seems like most people seem to be doing pretty well.
Once this cell is finished, so it should have a number, then you can run the next one, which is the visualization, so the fun part. And so it should take a little bit of time. It has to do the isosurfacing and build the surfaces. So here we're going to add in the geological model, which is basically a rectangular prism that we are coloring with the map, so solid geology map model, sorry, and then the surfaces. So with the viewer, you can spin it around and look at the model. You can turn different things on and off. So all of the faults are labeled, all of the geological units and the geological model. So we can turn that off and have a look at the different units and look at the surfaces. And then you could look at the faults. We can have a look at the data points that we've actually used to create the model. So this is just for stratigraphy in this case. But we could add other things into the model as well. So if you wanted to visualize the data that you've used for a particular fault, then you can add that in here. If you wanted to view the gradient of the feature that we've used to create the surfaces, you could do that as well. So there's lots of cool things you can do. Then we can go further down, and this is just getting the DTM from Map2Loop, and then we can evaluate the model and the geology map on the same grid and have a look at how they compare. And they are not going to look pretty because there's something wrong with the code, and I didn't have enough time to fix it, but you can still do a comparison between. There's all of the Matplotlib plots that didn't come up. So down the bottom should be the in the center here. So on the left is the stratigraphic column, and then we have the geology map, and then we have the geology map or the geology model interpolated on topography. So it should be showing the same features, but there's a bit of a bug in the coloring. So I think I'm out by 1 unit because everything seems to be shifted. But I didn't have enough time to try and fix this up. So it could also be a bug in the ordering of the stratigraphic column. I'm not sure. But you can see that the main geometries that we're producing are actually pretty similar to what you're seeing in the map. There's obviously some differences, but that's because the model is a simplification. So
that actually, this ran a lot faster on AWS than it did on my laptop. Should I be expecting that? Is it?
The computer that it's using for AWS has 96 CPUs and 190 gigs of RAM, so it should run pretty quick.
How much does it cost for one of those? I'd like to have one.
$5 an hour.
$5 an hour. And so mine. Hands up. Anyone who tried it? Have you managed to get it to work? Just who didn't get theirs to work yet? Most people actually got it to work. So
what we could do is have a look back at the map and see whether the geology is working. Mark, did you restart the server?
Yeah, I did. Try zooming in and out and see if it comes.
So if we can get the geology map to work, or if you know roughly what the geology is in a particular area, you can use this draw rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. So here I'll just draw a slightly bigger rectangle over the same area. And if we were to run the code again, so we go back to this cell and run this one, and then we can choose draw your own rather than one of the already predefined outcrops. And so if you use draw your own, it will use this blue shape rather than the purple one. And then we can run the process as before. And it's a little bit tricky to do if you can't see the geology whilst you're choosing the area, because you can't decide whether there's any data points or not. But if you stick close to where the outcrops that I've drawn are, there should be a lot of data points.
The second time I loaded it up, actually, I had to restart, and then after that, the geology did load up. So anyone who isn't getting the geology to load up could if you restart, it might come up. But
I think the geology is the server's just not liking being having requests from so many people at once.
So does anyone have any questions or comments? Seems to have worked for most people.
So the other thing I'd like to say is, so the Jupyter notebooks are going to be hidden. We're actually developing a GUI that's going to be hopefully a little bit more user-friendly. So you won't have to know how to code or read the code whatsoever. We're still going to keep the option to be able to modify the code. So the code will still be available, but it's going to be hidden. And there will be a workflow where you can actually go through what you've done. So select a rectangle and choose the data servers you want to use. And you should spit out a 3D model, and you should be able to also spin it around in the visualization package. It's work in progress.
If Mark, did you have the GUI to show, or I haven't unzipped it?
I've got the old version there if you want, but I don't think.
Let's leave it. I think it's going to be.
I mean, basically, what you guys just showed is what I wanted to show people, and I thought it was going to take longer for them to. So that's got to be a good sign, I think. But so I don't know. Did you have other things that you wanted to show? Or I don't think after 2 days of a workshop, if we finish a little bit early, nobody's going to say, "Damn them, we finished early."
I guess the only thing is if you are interested in using Loop, it is open source at the moment. The code that I've got here, and so you can either use it in the Docker container. So this is what we're doing on the server, or you can download it, install it on your own computer. The Loop GitHub, I can put it on the screen. So
put it into the chat again.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll go to the Loop GitHub. And I'll just go to the actual Loop one, not Loop structural. So on the Loop GitHub, there's the Map2Loop 2, which is the library for Map2Loop that we're using. And then there's Loop structural. And so if you go onto either of these repositories, which are open source, so this is the Map2Loop one. Then there's instructions on how to install it. And then on the Loop structure one, there's the same thing. So you can use Docker to install it, or there's the documentation that has installation instructions. So it will tell you how to install it and set up the environment. So feel free to have a go.
And the other, so this is the version that actually links to the geology map, but there are other versions online that actually have the sort of sample data. If people wanted to set up their own data set from their own map and structural information and all that sort of thing, there's kind of an example, isn't there?
So for depends on whether you're doing the 3D modeling part or the Map2Loop part of the workflow. So with the Map2Loop part, it's a little bit more complicated to use your own shapefiles at the moment because you need to be assigning the right column names to within the Map2Loop so that it knows which columns to do what with. For Loop structural, it's probably much the same input as what you'd need for any 3D modeling. So if you have a project for GeoModeler, you could probably convert it into a Loop structural project reasonably easily, I guess.
But what I meant though is that if the example data set that was up there, if you copied exactly all of the names from the shape files and so on, but it used your own data. Yeah,
that should work. I think that's over to Mark if it's a shapefile thing.
Well, the short answer is no, it won't. But it's probably, if you want to do it, let's talk about it, because basically every single geology map, geologists have used a different wacky convention as to what to call stuff. And so you actually have to load it up into a GIS and see what's going on. It's not difficult. It's just you have to look at the map, look at the shapefiles, and see what they contain. And the advantage of these things is that once you've done it for a map, the same logic applies to the whole map. So you can pull out different parts of the map, but you still do have to say this. The name of the fault is stored in this field in this layer, and if you don't tell it that, it doesn't know.
There's a comment here for the people in the room from Richard Scott from Oz Minerals. It takes a bit of effort to use different data and areas, but it can be done.
Yeah. If you're thinking of doing it, absolutely the best thing to do is to drop me a line, and we'll look at them together, because otherwise you are liable to pull your hair out. I mean, look at me, and you will suffer.
I don't have much left, so I won't do that.
And remember, you can also use the structural information. So fold axis, actual surfaces, overprinting. This is actually what makes loop structural different from other interpolators.
Great. Well, that seemed to work pretty well.
You sound surprised.
Yeah. I was imagining the various different ways it might not work, but does anybody have any other questions or want to see anything else? Or I know that we finished we finished that. Was there more that you guys wanted to go through?
No.
It might sound a bit anticlimactic, but I think it was really useful, and I want to thank you all for putting the effort in to run it. And I think the people who've had a chance to have a look at it will have seen how, the potential of the tool. And so thanks very much to all three of you for coming in and trying to run a workshop from thousands of kilometers away, and setting it all up.
Yep, no worries. Thank you for having us, Rick. That was a pleasure.
What's that?
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thanks very much. Last chance to ask Mark Laurent or Lachlan any questions.